Hey, good afternoon, everybody. We are Free Spirit Fabrics. We are coming to you live today from Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have a special guest here today, Valori Wells, who is coming to you live from Sisters, Oregon. We will bring Valori on shortly. We would just like to welcome you. We thank you for joining us today. I am Sharon Thornton, and Valori will be joining us shortly to talk about an upcoming collection that is shipping now. She has a new collection that is called Findings. It's 10 SKUs or 10 designs in the collection, and there's a quilt back. And Valori is going to be here to tell us all about it, the inspiration. She's going to show us some beautiful quilts, some fabric. She's got all kinds of great information to share with us about this collection, so we're really excited to have her. If you have any questions about anything that you see today, please go to the Free Spirit website. You can ask any questions today while we're live, and we will try to answer all the questions at the end if they're not answered along the way. But go to freespiritfabrics.com and you can see the projects, you can see the fabric collection, you can see all kinds of information about Valori and all of her collections, and especially this one that's coming up, Findings. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Valori Wells. So Valori, thank you for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Hi.
Hey
Excited to
there.
be here.
Yes, you look fantastic, and the quilts
Hey.
look great behind you.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you to tell us all about Findings.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for this collection. Again, it's one of my block printing collections where I carve blocks, usually just whatever I'm kind of obsessed about or dealing with in my life and how I express myself through my art. So I carve a bunch of blocks and then I just start printing, and then it usually develops into this sort of ongoing collection of designs. So this collection, I have a thing for birds. I really love birds, all birds.
Mhm.
I have a swallow right here on my arm, and swallows, I have a lot of symbolism in my fabric. And swallows represent coming home
Oh,
and the journey of coming home to oneself, and the age, the kids moving out, all the things. It's like, wait a minute, who am I when I'm not giving to everybody else? So this collection really was inspired by that journey in my life and this chapter I'm in. So I have I developed, let's see, 6 different designs, and then we turned them into the 10-piece collection. So this is the original theme print, block printed piece. I like to layer as many designs as possible. I love the challenge of how the ink sits on the top and what colors happen and combinations. So this is sort of the main piece. And then out of that came feathers because, feathers are one of the magical things we find.
yeah.
Um,
From
and
the birds.
yeah, from me and my birds.
That's
So
right.
I have very large feathers here. When we made them into the fabric, we swished them down a little bit because I just carve and then I make. And
Mhm.
then from there, we tweak and refine so that it is more user-friendly for a quilt or for a bag or for sewing and things like that. Um, I also took this swallow and I used gold ink, which because I love sparkly things. So this was a just a really simple two-tone um, piece that then
It's really
was really
beautiful.
fun because you see this guy here, we recolored it and made all sorts of pretty colored swallows. So it's kind of fun combining the process of what I create with my art and then how working with the Free Spirit Studio, how we then translate that into the best version for quilting fabric. And I
Mhm.
love that process. I love the journey of it because then I can be free to just make. And
Right.
that's when I usually make the most powerful stuff, right?
Hmm.
So this is another piece. This was fun because I printed on this in super intense magenta solid background. Um, and I used some kind of fluorescent almost inks, but when you put it on top of this color, it doesn't read like fluorescent on white, the way the colors play with each other. So that's one of my favorite things to do is to experiment with the way colors interact with each other. Uh,
Hmm.
this is another piece that was really fun. I call these my coins because you know how, again, those found objects, right? Like when you're out and about and you find a penny, right? It's always good luck. So I, of course, made my version of coins, which are, flowers and such.
Right.
So these are my coins. And I was playing around with using inks and painting my background fabric first. And so that was really cool to experiment with this whole other way of approaching fabric and then printing on top of it. Uh, and this last one is circles and it's ombre rainbows because I mean,
Why not?
why not? And
That's
you
great.
know, love
Yeah.
is love. And this to me encompasses, you know, all the goodness that we have in this life, right?
Right.
So those are the designs. And yeah, I have lots of quilts. What do you want to see, Sharon?
Well, we want to see it all, Val. You know we do. So I love the pieces that you've shown us already. I mean, I love, the swallows. I love the meaning behind it, the feathers, and all the things that you've shown us. And I think that what you've shown us is some great contrast, right? Like this collection plays really well together and individually with,
Yeah.
like each piece has its own theme and you could use it alone, or they certainly all play well together, which is fantastic. And we as makers love that. You
Oh
know
yeah.
we you know we do.
It's because we like
So,
our fabrics to multitask,
right.
right?
Right. There's not enough confusion in what we're doing. We need to add more.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
did you have any wood blocking that you wanted to show us before you showed us the quilts
Yeah,
or
I was going to show you my original swallow blocks.
oh gosh, look at
So
that.
I only carved two of them.
Wow, those are
And
beautiful.
they're pretty intense. But what's really fun about, again, this is one of the things I love about block printing, is that when you look at this one, like this is only two blocks, just repeated over in the way it's like tossed and turned, and it doesn't feel like two blocks. And I
Right.
think it's kind of cool.
That piece is beautiful.
Yeah,
Um,
love that
so
piece.
Val, a question I have for you. So, those two swallows that you just showed us, like how long does it take you to carve one of those?
Oh, this guy took a while.
Well, I was gonna say
Um,
they look involved. That's why I'm
they
asking.
are, and I'm kind of an obsessive person, so I'll get going on it and I'll sit there for hours. So I have to set a timer on my on my phone to get up because it's down like this.
Right.
And we have to get up and stretch. So I get up and I stretch and so I mean it was probably a couple days worth of work.
Wow.
I don't ever probably sit that long, but
Right. So would
no.
you say that a piece like that, if it was roughly 48 hours of work, would you say that takes you 2 weeks to do or a month to do? Or
No, 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 no.
oh,
No, I'm saying like 8 hours.
oh, okay.
If even
Wow.
that long, it could be about 6 hours.
Well, it's still dedicated time, and that's just the beginning of your process.
Yeah. And
Right.
actually, even I will totally admit the hardest part of this process for me is the drawing part to getting to like have a design out of my head or I reference images a lot, photographs. So I
Hmm.
mean I've always have been a photographer and that's where like my design reference, right?
Hmm.
So I will use those photographs to like find the shape of the swallow because that doesn't always come out of my head the same way. So just getting it onto that paper and then transferring it onto a block. And then you have to, because then you have to decide like what are you carving out that
Right.
will remain your background fabric, and what are you leaving that the ink will rest on.
Right.
Well, it's like this whole other thought process of like
Right.
how do you manipulate what then you see when it's printed, because it's
Mhm.
not the same as the drawing.
Right.
So yeah,
Right.
it's a that there's that process, and then you get to the place where you're like, okay, so now I'm going to print,
Right.
and I tend to print with lots of layers. Uh,
Hmm.
and so you start, you have to start with a layer,
Hmm.
right? So I started with these background circles and long diamond shapes, and you
Uh-huh.
have to leave enough space because you're going to be putting more color on top.
Right.
And so then you're playing around with the movement of your designs. And then the next part of the process is color, right? Because as I said, colors play off each other. This would look very different if it was printed on a white
Right.
or like a black,
Right.
right? You had those two extremes. So then you start playing with what color does with each other, and also the fact that the ink is sometimes you can see through it, sometimes a little more transparent than others. And so it's really cool because there's so much experimentation, and then like it works and you're like "Whew," it's like happy
Right.
dance in the studio. um so and I just love that. That's what I love about art, and I love about making these designs that then you have this fabric and you're like, now what type of quilt do I want to make out of it?
Right.
How am I
Right.
going to now take this big beautiful piece of fabric and cut it into little pieces and sew it with other ones, right?
Right. Right.
So
Well,
yes.
Val, I find it interesting to like I never thought of the part where, you've done the carvings. You're actually thinking way ahead of time of how, this is going to lay on a piece of fabric. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
like,
how it's going to
right.
print.
Right,
Hmm.
exactly. So I mean that's amazing. I never even gave any of that any thought. And then along the way, here's a question for you. When do you start thinking about the inspiration for the quilt? So you thinking about it in the very beginning, or are you primarily concentrating on the design, and then once you get to a satisfactory place, you start thinking about the
It
drawing?
really depends, because a lot of times when I first start carving blocks, it's just because I'm like deeply inspired too.
Right,
It doesn't have this end of now and then I'm gonna make it into fabric.
right,
Right?
okay,
It's purely the art,
right,
the art of creating,
right,
right? Like uh, I just get like, I have to carve this.
right.
Like whatever it is. Like right now, my past year, I've been obsessed with crows. So when I was doing this fabric, I was obsessed with this swallow
Right,
and
right.
the symbolism behind the blocks and what they mean to me. So so yeah, the quilts usually that doesn't
That's
jump
later.
into my train of thought
Right.
until like after we've developed the collection.
Okay.
I Now that doesn't mean that I don't think about fabric design, the design
Hmm.
that the blocks themselves and what I create on this fabric will be turned into fabric.
Hmm.
Does that make sense? Turned
Yeah.
into a collection. So
Yeah.
I always think about the collection before then the quilts actually get to me. The quilts tend to come, they're like the last arrivals,
Right. No, I know.
right?
So in
They're
the
like, oh,
beginning,
by
you're
the way.
right. So in the beginning, you're an artist, and you're
Yes.
creating art, and then you're creating fabric. And then after that, you look at the whole collection and you say, okay. But I'm sure at some point along the way, you are thinking about what you're going to do with a certain print out of your collection.
Oh, sure. Or I'll see something and be like, "Oh, that's a really cool design," or "I really like the way that moves," or something, and then the next thing I know, there's an aspect of it that relates to my fabric, and then I make a quilt.
Right.
Um,
So you're drawing your inspiration, I know, from a lot of birds, and you're saying the swallows and some crows. Are these all birds that are in your area, or are they more symbolic than they actually are that you see them daily?
well, I live in the country, so I have a lot of ravens,
Oh,
and my crows actually, honestly. I look like a crossbreed between a crow and a raven. But my brother lives in Portland and he has crows. And he has a group of a murder of them that like come to his house. And so
Wow.
in our entire little family, like my brother's family and my parents and me and my kids, we have a group chat and it's called Murder of Crows. And
Oh,
so
that's funny.
there's this huge connection with all of us with crows. And there's some ravens around here. So yeah. So
Oh,
you never know where the influence comes, right? Like
right.
more open-minded and curious we are with life and even our daily routine that those things influence what art comes out of me.
Right. No, I think it's a lot of quilters love sewing with birds. That's why I'm asking. I know that a lot of makers are very inspired with birds. So I was wondering, where you were drawing your inspiration from as well when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So, do you have some wonderful quilts you want to start showing us?
I'll show you some quilts.
Well,
Okay.
we see some behind you, but we'll look at some that you're going to hold up first.
Yes, well this is a mixture of findings and grace. So we'll talk about that last.
Okay.
But if anybody that knows me, I have a thing for indigo and blue. It's like my favorite color. And if I could do every single one of my fabric collections in indigo, I would. But I know that is
I'm with you on that. I love it as well. So I'm all for you doing that.
so I have a couple quilts here that like so this collection has a little bit of indigo in it, but then it has a very different palette. But one of my favorite quilt pattern designs that I've been designing quilts, forever since I've been started doing fabric and before that, which is
Mhm.
like 30 some years, right? Since
Right.
I've been making quilts, that I do a lot of patterns. And because my designs tend to be big and
Hmm.
like big repeats, I like places where you can see a big piece of fabric. So this is one of my favorite quilts. It's called Penelope,
Hmm.
and I spell it very phonetically. Just so
Oh,
if anybody wants to know, it looks funny when you see it because it's Finn, right?
right.
Penelope. Anyways.
Penelope. Well, I like that. Thank you for explaining that.
So this is one of them that I did that I really accented the blue and a little bit of that hot pink.
Looks beautiful. I love
The
it.
whole quilt, is a big chunk of this main print and then this really fun zigzag going down it.
Yes. Well,
You know,
what I like about that quilt, Val, is like when you show a quilt that's like that, as makers, we could look at that and say, oh, look how great that print looks as a whole cloth, right? But then
Mhm.
you can also see with the zigzag going down the side, it pieces up beautifully well, the collection as well.
Yeah, and you can use so I really like to design patterns that then I can use with other fabrics, right?
Right,
It's because I own a shop
right,
and I'm always looking for kitting some, you see this big, huge, beautiful piece of fabric and you want to do a kit with it. So I like to do that. And then you take that theme print and out of your theme print, you can pick your colors for the zigzag, right? So
right,
it's a way to accent and play with color.
right. Well,
This
look
was
beautiful.
this is another version of Penelope that uses more variety of the color palette. So that's the other one.
Right. Wow. They both make a great impact.
Yeah, and they're a little bit different. But that's what's kind of fun about that pattern. It's
Right.
like, and it goes together really quick
Even
because
better.
I don't have a lot of time.
Right.
And so I love patterns that like are unique and go together fairly quick. So yeah. So one of the other patterns, I love
Mhm.
myself a log cabin. It's like my favorite block.
I
My
do
mom and
too.
I, we have a
Yep.
thing for log cabins. And last year when Grace came out, we did a round robin log cabin, right? Which I love saying that. So I started with middle,
Right.
I gave it to mom, and we had to use Grace and we could use solids. That
Mhm.
was the criteria.
Right.
And then she responded and put a log around it. And then, so it was like just one big block, right? That just
Oh, that's
be
cool.
like 60 by 60. And it
Yeah.
turned out so cool that I decided I'm like, I gotta I gotta tweak that and make it into a pattern. So that's
Yeah.
what the quilt is, and it's called Reflections. So, and it's pretty big, so not sure if you'll be able to see it all, but you can get the gist.
Wow. Very pretty. So you started the center and then you gave it to your mom, and then did it go back to you or did it go to other people?
No, just back and forth between us two. So we responded off of
Oh,
each other. So
yeah,
this is the one I made in after we had done our original round robin one. So,
right,
and I love that. I love that aspect of quilting. And it would be, when you can like play off somebody else, right? It
right.
makes you think outside the box. It makes you respond to what's put in front of you.
Hmm.
Um, and I love that. I think it's
Yeah,
so much fun.
I do too.
Yeah.
I used to belong to a quilt guild where we would do round robins and it would be, go from person to person. No, not just between two, but
Yeah,
then when
yeah.
you get it, you're looking at it going, wow, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right?
It's so fun. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one I made is a really simple throw. Again, we're going back to the like fast and furious putting together, and then actually
Right.
you could do it with scraps if you wanted, and but it's like a little throw, and I chose on this one not to use the indigo because
Oh,
let's let's challenge yourself, Val.
right, right.
Now, the other blue is in there, but the indigo's not.
Oh,
So this is that one.
oh, that's pretty too. See, look how well all those fabrics play together. They do fantastic.
Well, and you know what? I was so excited when this one went together because I was like, 'cause I wasn't sure whether I was going to like it without the indigo. And I was
Right,
like, I love the mood of it. It's like it's soft, but it's not pastel, right? There's
right,
nothing that's too, um, there's still a saturation to the colors a little bit, right? But it's
right.
more, I don't know, it's just kind of dreamy and yeah.
Yeah. Can you show us again one more time?
Yeah.
And what's the name of this one?
This is called a carry-all throw because
Oh,
years ago. So this is one of my old patterns that we just revisit and we keep redoing.
right.
It
Well, it's a
came,
great quilt. Yeah.
yeah, it came with a tote pattern also. So it's called the carry-all tote and
Oh,
throw.
yep.
Not a very clever title, people. Maybe
That's
someday I
okay.
should rename it.
No, it's great. I like it.
Yeah, so it's super simple. And I mean, I never make the tote anymore. Um, but I absolutely love this quilt because it goes together in like a couple hours max.
That's awesome.
And it's a great size.
Yep. Very nice. So the three quilts you just showed us, we can, if anyone is interested, they can get all of these patterns through your shop, correct?
Yeah, through the stitch and post.
So Stitch and Post. If you're interested in buying those patterns, either retail or wholesale, just
Hmm.
reach out to Stitch and Post and
Yep.
you
And we're, as a business, we're going to kit this one because there's nothing like, you're out and about and you're in this great shop and you're like, oh, I really love that quilt. And it's a sample. And you're like, okay. So then you have to pick all the fabrics that you
right,
see in it. And then you got to get them cut. So we try to create some really cool exclusive kits that are like, this is a no-brainer. You like this? Great for a
right.
granddaughter,
That's what I was thinking. I was like, that's a great workup for a quilt. Like you said, a couple hours, you get that thing done. Nice.
right? And
Yeah,
like the best gift ever.
right.
And then we will kit up, not this one, this one. Because this is again another one of those great, that one.
Very nice. That's
Guys.
love that.
Yeah.
I do like the indigo running through that, but I'm
Oh,
like
and
you,
that
Val.
and this splash of hot pink because hot pink and indigo are
Oh
so
yeah.
good together.
Yeah, they are. They definitely are. You can ask the design team here, like if they have blues in there, they're like, Sharon, we don't want to hear from you. We know you like blue. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I can't help it. So anyways, well, those quilts are fantastic. So can you tell us anything about the other quilt
Oh,
behind
I
you?
almost forgot. Yes.
Yeah. So,
I get so excited and caught up. Okay, so Free Spirit is doing a challenge called Fortunate Findings, right? So we're
right,
using where the challenge is to use grace and findings together to create a quilt. So last fall, when I decided when I knew I needed to do one myself,
Right,
I I was like, I don't know what to make. I
right,
had no idea. And I knew if I was going to make something, one, I didn't want to write a pattern for it. I
right,
wanted to just create something because the whole point of the challenge is that like coming back to oneself and like what are your fortunate findings in this life?
right.
And so I put up big pieces of butcher paper on my wall
Oh,
and I took some pencils and I was like, and I just drew shapes and feelings, right?
right.
Um, uh, Not really thinking. I put my earbuds in and I just drew on it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I walked away for a while
Right.
and came back and took like a Sharpie and started defining the sketchiness and finding these more concrete lines and design.
Mm-hmm.
And also going back to like my feeling and this whole concept of coming home and how in life, as life is messy and beautiful, there's broken parts and there's whole parts and there's mixed of it and it all comes back to one place. And that place of like no one else lives in this body but me, you
Right.
know? And so that really matters. And so
Mm-hmm.
how I take care of myself really matters. How I treat myself really matters. All those things, right? And I know you don't see that in this quilt, but that's where all of this came from inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
So I broke it apart into these parts and then cut them into templates basically and
Right.
pieced this. So this whole quilt is pieced. And it was like this amazing puzzle. And besides the puzzle of piecing, I had to figure out how to move the fabric around. So,
Right.
yeah, so this is the final product.
Well, that's awesome. So I was going to ask you how it was executed. So
Yeah,
it's piece that is an applique. It's not a raw end.
every single bit of it is pieced.
Wow. That's pretty
I'm so
amazing.
proud of this. Now, let me tell you, I learned so much. I learned so much about patience and being super present and in the moment, right? So because I take a piece off and I'd have my hash marks on it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to cut it a quarter inch wider on my
Right.
fabric and then mark all the parts
Right.
and
Right.
put it, this whole piece onto this piece. Like you had to like pin super accurately because the
Right.
sewing time, if you do all that well, isn't very long,
Right.
right?
Exactly. It's
The
always
sewing
the prep. It's always the prep work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was so fun and so it was so cool. And so I've started another one and I hope to develop this into a class because for this fall because I think it could be super fun way to really dive into improvisational piecing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So
Well,
that's
that's
my
beautiful.
Fortunate Findings quilt.
Well, you know what I see in the center of that? It looks to me like an eye. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
There's
the eye.
there's kind of an infinity sort of figure eight sort of
Yeah.
symbol there.
That's very
Um,
cool. Very
yeah,
nice. I like that. So the Fortunate Findings Quilt Challenge, I'm just going to read a couple of the criteria that is necessary for this, if you don't mind, Val.
not
Just
at
so
all.
everyone knows, and then they can go to the website to find out more details. But each quilt must use 100% Free Spirit fabrics. A minimum of 50% of the fabric must be from Findings by Valori Wells, or a combination of Findings and Grace, which is also designed by Valori Wells. And the quilt size is 60 by 60. So, like Val just described to us, you can do whatever you want, like just let it come from a place from inside of you and just be very creative. But the piece is 60 by 60, and you have to use all Free Spirit fabrics, and we prefer that it be all a Valerie Wells fabric. Um,
I
but
although
anyway,
did not know the 60 by 60 rule, and so I just made it. So
oh.
I'm not eligible for the challenge.
Well, I don't know what the size of the piece is. Do you know what size that is?
Mine? No, it may be about 60 long, but it's more of a rectangle because I just like made it and then I did not square that up. I
Oh,
liked the so it's faced on the back instead of binding because when you do a facing on a quilt, it allows you to,
I
have different
yeah.
shapes. So this
I
is
did
not
see.
square or anything like that.
Would it be difficult to show us? Because I loved the way you finished that quilt. I do remember that because we had it for H and
Oh,
H.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way that you did that on the back, I had never seen a quilt finish like that. And I really thought that was amazing. Plus,
So my mother taught me this, right? My mom is pretty amazing.
well, your mom is amazing, but so are you too.
Okay, so I'll put it up and then I'll bring my computer closer.
Okay. Yeah. And is that the backing
This,
or is that from?
yeah, another fail for the challenge. Good thing I'm not entering. This is one of my designs,
Right.
but it's a voile from like years ago from Free Spirit. So it is a Free Spirit fabric, but it's not
So see, you stayed within the perimeters of the challenge.
yeah. So this is that's the facing.
I thought that that was really very interesting to see how that was
Right.
done. Yeah,
So, and it's hand stitched here, but it allows like the seams it folds over, but it keeps the shape of the quilt because the
right.
quilt is not square. Not square, not rectangular.
That's okay. No one's looking. We don't know, Val. Don't tell us. So, all
I
right.
think it's perfect that way, if you want to know the
Yeah.
truth.
No, I thought that was ingenious because, like I said to you, in truth, I've never seen a quilt finished like that. And, obviously the edges are finished. And I thought that that was ingenious. I was looking at that going, I've never seen this before. That's quite interesting.
Mom does it with all of her art quilts, right? Because
Really?
think about a binding, when you think about adding a binding, like if there was a binding on this,
Right.
it would
Take away, right?
act to me,
Right.
it would be adding another design line to it,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that that would distract from the way that the color moves on and off of the quilt.
Right. Well, very nicely done.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
I love it. I love the beginning to end concept.
Me
So if
too. It
any,
was so fun.
yeah, well, it's awesome. I think it's great. So if anybody's interested in finding out more information on the Fortunate Findings Quilt Challenge, come to the Free Spirit website, freespiritfabrics.com, and you will find everything you're looking for right there. So Val, is there anything else that you'd like to share with? Oh, there's plenty. We still have to talk about Sisters is coming up. What do you want to tell us about Sisters?
Well, Sisters is the town I live in,
Well,
but
I'm
what
sorry.
you're talking about
I'm sorry. You knew what I meant.
is the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show,
Yes,
which my mom started 50 years ago. And so July 12th, 2025 is our 50th celebration.
that's amazing.
And we've been celebrating our shop, the Stitch and Post, which is also 50 years old this year, turned 50.
Wow. Yep.
And so yeah, that's happening. We have Quilters Affair before Quilt Show, where I have 36 teachers coming to Sisters, and
Wow.
we rent out our entire high school.
Wow.
You guys, this is like the coolest part. I love this. Like, this is a lot of work to do all this, right? But that week, and this is the high school my kids go to, and it's a very artistic high school. Like, our art department is off the charts. And I love this school. But when we go in there and we take it over, it turns into this fiber arts high school
Oh,
of all of us who really like to attend classes. Let me tell you, no one's ever late. No one's getting in trouble by the dean.
right.
Um, the whole place has this vibe and this electricity of creativity and inspiration. And it's just so cool. I love
That's
it so
awesome.
much. So
So is that 5 days prior to the show? Is that when
yeah,
it begins?
we so so the little story goes like this. My mom started the Stitch and Post May 23rd, 1975. And in July, her friend who had a small little artist consignment shop, they were like, well, let's draw people into Sisters. We had 500 people in our town at this time, right?
Right.
And so They like have this little craft show, and mom hung up 10 of our family quilts. And she
Mm-hmm.
had asked some of her students, because she was a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and had said, "Would you like to hang your quilts?" And they're like, "No, no, 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 no."
Right.
So mom hangs up her 12 quilts, and the ladies come to town, and everybody does a little shopping, and they're like, "Well, maybe we'll do it next year." So mom's like, "Okay." So the
Right.
next year she maybe had double.
Right.
And then 1978 rolls around and she decided, you know, I'm going to bring someone in to give a lecture. So she invited Mary Ellen Hopkins. Do you remember Mary Ellen Hopkins?
Yes.
Okay, so she invited Mary Ellen Hopkins and she came and gave a lecture. And that was the beginning of Quilters Affair.
Wow.
Over these 50 years, we have organically grown to 36 teachers for the 5 days before the show. And the
Wow.
show is always on the second Saturday. So that means of July, which
Right.
means our 5 days, just whatever precedes, whatever goes in front of that, those 5 days, that's our classes. So yeah.
That's awesome. Now, how many quilts are you guys usually hanging? 1,000?
Yeah, we have about 1,000. And then including, so, you know, quilt show itself in the early 2000s, us as a business couldn't put it on anymore. It had gotten so big and it was like, oh, it's so much. And it's a free show, right?
Right.
That Quilt Show itself became a nonprofit. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have the wonderful support of our sponsorships in Sisters, right? And so all the sponsorships, meaning all the different businesses in town, will get a quilt in their business for the month of July.
Oh.
So, which helps bring people in because quilters, we
Oh,
like
yeah.
quilts and then we like to shop.
Right. We do.
So hanging around town, our town hasn't gotten any bigger, so the max we can hang around town and
Right.
nature grows, so it changes certain things.
Right.
Is about 1,000, but then we have about 100 sponsor quilts around town. So there's 1,100 quilts for
Wow. All right. So you're saying that the sponsors that are in town, there's usually a quilt hanging within their business for the month of July, in addition to the 1,000 that get hung on that Saturday.
yes.
That's a lot of
Yes.
quilts. That's
Yeah,
pretty amazing.
it is amazing.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
I have to make it there one year. I wanted to come this year, and obviously I'm not, but I'm telling you, it is definitely a bucket list for many of us, and definitely me as well. So, and then the other thing that I'd like to mention to everybody in addition to that is I listened to the podcast that you did with Quilter on Fire, and I have to say it was pretty amazing to hear you talk about your personal journey as well as the journey, about with your mother and with the business, and now you're the owner of the business and Stitch and Post and just everything that you do, Val, is very, very enlightening and amazing. You should be very proud of everything you've done. I mean, really.
So
It
much fun. I had so much fun doing that podcast.
it was
I just get going and it's been, I mean, this past couple years have especially been really interesting for me because my mom started all this when I was a year and a half. So I know no different. I
right.
don't remember a year in my life of not having a Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show.
Right. Exactly. That's
And
awesome.
so it's so fascinating. We just did a book with C&T all about 5 decades of quilting in America by my mom. So it's really about the shop
Wow.
and the show and everything that we've done in our community. Because it takes a village to do all of this stuff.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Um, and so it's been fascinating because my mom's like she goes, 50 years, I don't know, 50 years. And I'm like, Mom, I turned 52 this year. So
Right.
perspective,
Right.
my life,
Right. Oh, right. Right. So what's the
right?
name of the book, Val? Is it out already?
Sisters. I wish I
Oh,
had one here because my copy's at the shop. Yes,
yeah.
and we have it on our website and yeah, it's really exciting. And it was and such a cool journey to go through all that and to
Right.
remember all the things and yeah, and all the people, all the quilters who have touched my life over the years. And,
Hmm.
because growing up, they were like my mom's friends,
Right.
right? And so I got
Exactly.
to know so many of these people that became my aunties or, took me under their wing when I was, you know, first starting out and stuff like that. So it's
Hmm.
it's really cool. And it was
It is. It's
it was
awesome. Well, I
cool.
know that quilters overall are a very warm, loving bunch. So
Yeah.
you've been blessed to be around that your whole life. And I think if we're ever looking for words to define a quilter, we're going to call you.
Yeah.
Who better than you with 50 years being around quilters your whole life? You can
Yeah.
define who we are, right? So
Yeah.
that's awesome, Val. Well,
Thanks.
I think that we've covered most of everything we wanted to talk about today. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. And I want to remind everybody that in some summary, we started off talking about Findings by Valori Wells, which is shipping now to not only Stitch and Post, but also to many, many other quilt shops across the United States. So if you were inspired by Valerie today and you want to rush out to your local quilt shop to buy it, please do. It's delivering now. It is a total of 10 different designs, and there's also a quilt back with this collection.
Oh yeah,
So,
which is
oh yeah,
right.
you were going to show us that, right?
Here's the back. It's blue.
I was just going to say, oh, Val, what color is it? It's blue. Look at that. How beautiful.
Oh, I love this one. It makes me want to print this one.
Yeah. It's very beautiful. So thank you, Val. We've really enjoyed having you and good luck. I know you're a very busy lady. We thank you for taking time with us today. You've got a
Always.
lot coming up in the next few weeks, and I'm excited. I'm going to come see you next year. It won't be this year, but it'll be next year.
Okay.
So
You're
thank
always
you.
welcome.
Excuse me?
I said you're always welcome.
Oh, well, thank you, Val. So, anyways, well, you have a lovely day. And again, thank you for joining us.
You.
All right, take care, everybody.